Good morning, everyone. Happy Thursday morning to you. I appreciate you being with me. And by the way, I'm still working on the May special, and this is going to be the resurrection special of putting together different books, the books that I offer on the resurrection. You're going to love this. I just don't have everything finalized, having to, really crunch the numbers on this so that I don't do myself harm. So just be patient with me, and we will announce that special just as soon as possible. And again, I do apologize. Well, we're bringing, I told you yesterday I'd bring this study of this generation to a close, and I just decided to do this one more program, one more video on this. Remember, Jesus was asked about his coming and the end of the age. And he answered the question. And he said, this generation will by no means pass away until all of these things are fulfilled. We come to the book of Revelation. And over the last two videos, I've shared with you some thoughts from the book of Revelation. But I want you to notice that the book of Revelation begins by stating the revelation of Jesus Christ, which God, now keep in mind, that's the Father who knew the day and the hour of the Lord's coming, right? The revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave to him to show to his servants things which must shortly come to pass. Now, he uses a Greek term, "entokai." That little term's only used 7 or 8 times in the entirety of the New Testament. And listen to me very, very, very carefully. It never, ever, never refers to something of which rapidity of action takes precedent over imminence of action. Never. So when people say, well, the Father wasn't saying how soon those things were going to occur. He was just simply saying when they finally get around to happening, it's going to take place really, really fast. Rapidly, not imminently. That is simply linguistically untenable. So, then he said, Revelation 1 verse 3, the time is at hand, has drawn near. Now, throughout the entirety of the book of Revelation, we find those temporal statements. Revelation chapter 10, 6 and 7. After the sounding of the 6th trumpet, and at the sounding of the 7th, there would be no more delay in the fulfillment of the vision of Revelation. And yesterday I shared with you Revelation chapter 22, 10, 11, but let's take note. In Revelation chapter 20, 10 and following, at the end of the millennium, we have the great white throne judgment. Well, where does the great white throne judgment take place? Oh, at the end of the millennium. At the coming of the Lord. Okay? So the coming of the Lord for the great judgment comes at the end of the millennium. In Revelation 21 and 22, John is given a vision of the new heaven and the new earth, the new Jerusalem that was going to come down from God out of heaven. It's not the church being raptured off of earth. Kind of destroys the rapture doctrine, doesn't it? Anyway, after giving the description of this new creation, verse 6 says, he said unto me, these sayings, what sayings? The description of the coming of the Lord, the judgment, the resurrection, the new Jerusalem, the new heaven and new earth. These things are faithful and true. The Lord God of the prophets sent his angels to show unto his servants the things which must shortly be done. Wait a minute. In takai. That's right. The same term that he used at the very beginning of the book. To show to his servant things which must shortly come to pass. Not rapidly come to pass. That's an abuse of the Greek. So he is telling us, and look, I know the doctrine of the millennium is a troubling, thorny issue. But if it's true that the coming of the Lord, the judgment and the resurrection, is at the end of the millennium, then when Revelation 22 tells us that these things, not some of these things, not a few of them, not even most of them, but when these things must shortly come to pass, in takai, that means that all of them would reach their climax very shortly. Look at verse 7. Behold, I come quickly. Once again, Jesus tells us, I do, erkomai taku. This is not a statement about how rapidly he would come once he would get in the frame of mind to come. You know, I mean, look, this is like saying your house is on fire, right? You call the fire station, you call 911 and say, my house is on fire, my house is on fire. Now correlate that with the book of Revelation, in which the saints in the 7 churches were being persecuted by the Jews for their faith in Jesus Christ. And they cry out to the Lord, how long, O Lord, holy and true, how do you not avenge us on those that are on the earth? The martyrs cry out, the living cry out. What are they crying out for? Vindication and relief. So here you are, your house is on fire. I experienced this some years ago. I want to tell you, it's no fun. My house caught on fire. It didn't burn down, thankfully. But you call the fire station, my house is on fire, my house is on fire. And they said, we're coming quickly. And the house just burns right straight down to the foundation. Years and years and years later, you've rebuilt the house. You're sitting on your front porch and you hear sirens blaring. And here comes a fire truck blasting down the street, pulling into your driveway. Guys jumping out of their truck, grabbing the hoses. And you go, what are you doing? And they said, we're coming to put out the fire. And you said, the fire was years ago. I called you years ago and you said you were coming quickly. And the fire chief goes, well, yeah, but you don't understand. We weren't telling you when we were coming. All we meant was that when we finally got around to coming, man, we were going to exceed the speed limit. We were going to drive rapidly. That is the nonsensical explanation that futurists put on Revelation 22, verse 7 and verse 12, where Jesus once again said, behold, I come quickly. Now, put Jesus' statement, behold, I come quickly, within the context of Revelation 22, verse 10 that we examined yesterday. And follow this. The time of the resurrection is the time of the coming of the Lord. The time of the resurrection would be in the last days. It would be at the time when the power of the holy people is completely shattered. It would be at the end of the millennium. In Revelation chapter 22, and by the way, John was told, do not seal the vision of this book because it's a long time off. That was 500 years from from Daniel to John. 500 years. It was a long time off, wasn't it? In the book of Revelation, John was given the vision of the coming of the Lord, the judgment, and the resurrection at the end of the millennium. And Jesus promised, behold, I come quickly. Quickly for what? The judgment and the resurrection at the end of the millennium. Behold, I come quickly. And remember, do not seal the vision of the prophecy of this book, because the time is. It is the time for fulfillment. Now look, folks, we're 2,000 years this side of John's statement. We're 2,000 years past the mandate, do not seal the book because it is the time. We're 2,000 years removed from the time in which Jesus promised his coming for the judgment, for the resurrection at the end of the millennium. And he said, behold, I come quickly. If Jesus was saying, I don't know when I'm coming, but when I finally get around to it now, I'm going to come on the fastest cloud in heaven. It makes an absolute farce, a joke of the language of Matthew 24:34 and of Revelation chapter 22. Okay. That's enough on this generation shall not pass. I think you get the point. Don't forget, tomorrow we will continue our discussion of Mr. Lance Conley's book, Hope Resurrected. Now, we've covered Isaiah chapter 66 sufficiently, proving the day of the Lord was to be in AD 70. There would be survivors of that. They would go to the nations and they would evangelize the nations. Thus, Mr. Conley's foundational claim in his book is false. But, he still appeals to Romans 11:25-27, and he says Romans 11:25-27 definitively proves full preterism. No, it supports it fully. Sorry for the pun. So we'll begin a discussion of Romans 11:25-27 tomorrow. I'll see you on the flip side.